So you're used to newspaper headline review, you know, review current stories, current front pages. But today we're going back in time. So we're making the old new. I mean, since we brought back the old national anthem, how about we bring back the old newspapers? And there's a young man together with his team. They're essentially preserving our history. You know how they say it's important to know where you're coming from and to be very aware of it. This morning we're joined on the show by Fuad Lawal. He's the Executive Director, Archivi.ng. That's how to pronounce it. Fuad, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
How market?
Yeah, how market, yeah. It's funny, I ask people how market all the time and they always laugh.
Because, yeah, it has a ring to it.
Yeah, but like everyone is selling something, eh?
Yeah, right? And you are selling something too.
It turns out.
So let's get right into it. Yeah. Archiving is doing something revolutionary. Because I know how many times as journalists, you want to go back in time and say, what happened on this day about this issue? And then you really don't find as much. You have to go to, you know, the libraries, you have to do the hard copy search. But you're doing something revolutionary. You're archiving Nigeria's old newspapers, essentially.
Yeah.
And I want us to just start with the demo, because a lot of this conversation will happen on the pages of the screen. So first, let's do this day on a random date, maybe in the year 2000, for example.
Yeah.
And take a look at what you've been able to do. Then we'll walk through the work and then some other stories. So what do you have for us today, Fuad?
Okay. So today's news from 2000, it's a PM News headline: impeachment, reps plot against Obasanjo. The context here is that like Nigeria has returned to democracy for just about a year.
Yeah.
So a standard thing that happens when teams and systems are getting set up is there's a forming stage and there's a storming where everybody's trying to figure out the chemistry and everything. So one of the things that was very, very big in the zeitgeist at the time, the political zeitgeist, was just like Obasanjo trying to like provide some stability across like the entire political like sphere. So I think it must have been against some. There was also some skepticism. Remember, Obasanjo was was in the military, and like. Obasanjo came into the power of, you can say to a large extent, the efforts of the pro-democracy movement. That, I mean, he was mostly in prison, so he was not actively like participating in those things from prison, understandably. But yeah, I think it was generally a very interesting time. Interestingly for me, as a kid, there's a chance that I probably had a copy of this newspaper, because my daily commute was Ojuelegba to Ikorodu. And so on the way back, my brother and I would buy the PM newspaper. I take the metro section, he just takes
What kind of children were you buying a newspaper? That's very unusual.
My brother was like 10 years older and he was already in his sports phase.
Right.
But I was obsessed with like man stabs neighbor stories as a kid. Doesn't say anything about my character. But yeah.
And you know what I see there, guys? Or you can't pay
minimum wage.
That's where we are right now.
Kind of, you're in the spirit.
Not specifically on your state.
You know, it's supposed to point that you made
generally.
earlier about how things change or how they remain the same.
Exactly.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah. The recurring message that every newspaper or most newspapers feeds back at us is the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's also quite frankly largely like why it's important. There's a cyclical nature of just time where you see like people get to a point of desperation, and because of that point of desperation, they back certain types of leaders or make certain types of choices, right? And like context helps us to even attempt to even say, you know what, maybe we should try to stay away from these types of choices and stay into better ones, right? We see how like even like in more advanced economies, like understanding how the stock markets have performed over the past decades is a good indication of like is useful in like trying to predict what can happen in markets. But the fundamental thing is even beyond like politics, it's like all like knowledge as a society of any society is built on like contextual information, like what has happened before. I'm building on top of that. And if you do not have anything that you can like any body of context, you're basically like floating in prison.
Okay, one question I wanted to ask you, since you're archiving, does it hit you that when you go back in history, some names have been consistent? They never go away.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Obasanjo, Muhammadu Buhari, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, T.Y. Danjuma. These are maybe the frontliners. But you have other people. Some people, people didn't even know. Some people did not know David Mark was in the military as well. Some people did not know that. There are people that are governors now. They were deputy governors then. How does it hit you as a young person that, come on, when will the guys leave the scene for the younger people?
So it gives even the smallest and slightest things so much meaning. For example, Morocco was a very, very big part of, like, it's a very big part of my own family's, like, myth, for example, or like origin story. My grandfather built a house in old Morocco, right? And the governor of Lagos, Raji Rasaki, right?
Then?
Yes, at the time, in early 90s, like the mass demolition of what was Morocco, but largely what is now Lekki and some parts of like the island was built on top of that, right? So when people of Morocco went to like appeal in court and like try to like find justice, the judge who gave them the judicial get out of this place was, you can say, largely like Ligale Ayorinde, right? So like it just gives everything new meaning. The day I found this out, I was actually at my office. I was working at my day job. I used to be working in a newsroom then.
Right.
And I was working in Lekki, and I remember calling my dad and saying, describe where Alaji's house was, and he was like, it be Lekki phase 1. And I was like, is there a chance? Yeah, so it just, so for example, I found out about this while I was trying to understand due to the Bami like incidents, like when soldiers were like reading, and I was like, oh, this is like very familiar. This is not like particularly new, right? And I think that another thing that happens is like information helps people like be better equipped with how to like just deal with like circumstances. So those names is really not just even in the head, like it's even like the streets, it's tiny policies, it's small talk, like it's how it just gives everything so much meaning. It's in the little and in the big things. Yes.
You know, do you want to take us to 1974? Because we have a couple more clippings.
Let's go to 1974, and while we're going there, it may also be important for us to ask you the quantum of work. We're going to 1974, we're waiting for it.
Yeah, that's a Nigerian magazine, there you go.
The quantum of work that went into you putting together all of these clippings and, you know, creating this website.
Okay, so first of all, it is ongoing work. We've, like, by our estimates, if we performed at our like best capacity, right, we will still be scanning newspapers at least 6 years from now.
Wow.
Right.
What's the target?
5 million pages. Okay. Just for context.
AI can help.
It does help, but like it really requires human effort to stand, open a press, scan. So let me give you context, right? In October last year, we went live with about 50,000 pages, right? Across 2 decades. So a little over 4,000 days. And like it was exciting. Yes, it's exciting. 50,000 pages that people could not our math is that it will take you about 5 hours to find. It take you about 5 hours to find a newspaper. So you make a commitment to leave your house. You go to the library, probably go through traffic. You now check through hundreds of pages to find what you're looking for, right? And our question is, can we reduce that to like 5 minutes or 5 seconds with like this entire effort? So we went live with 50,000 pages, and while that was exciting, internally for us, that's only like 1% progress.
1%.
Yes. of all the work that needs to get done.
Because we're trying to get as many of the pages as possible. From politics to. I saw Ogunde there, and the Ogunde we interviewed, the son, literally a carbon copy of his father, literally. One of the things I wanted to find out as we begin to look at the pages as much as it's produced for us. Okay, this is what now? Where is this?
So this is I think this is the president.
Yeah.
On the nation's economy in ruins. What year is this? What year is this?
This looks like the.
I think it was it's early 80s.
Yes.
So it's funny. I know it was. I know it's early 80s because of article. Like I can. There's an article picture bottom right.
Oh, really? Come on.
What's going on?
A flash from the past.
Yeah.
I know you have. We have quite a number, at least choosing from the. So hour in the
That's
news.
hour in the news.
Yeah.
If they can just hold that, there's a headline that we saw there. If they can hold it. Okay, so
News Watch.
So News Watch. So here's the thing. There are papers that are currently accessible, right?
Okay.
So like largely PM News. There's some The Republic. The Republic is now defunct. So News Watch. While we are still like in the process of figuring out how to like make these papers accessible, right? A lot of the time we go to the libraries, we see papers, we like the headlines, we just take photos. An example is like this News Watch, right? For example, and News Watch is such a prolific magazine in the sense that Delegiwa, very interesting character, right? Worked at the New York Times, came to Nigeria, worked with local press, and then decided like, I'm going to go and start a magazine and start this magazine. And it's very interesting because like one of the most junior people in the newsroom when he was setting up, Delelo JJ went on to start Sotri for Next. And Next went on to produce the crop, right? So it does put things into like context, right?
And I see the front page of the News Watch. Right there saying Third Republic begins. Now, at that point when they were starting the Third Republic, it was like, oh, we're there now. This is going to be the final one. Little did they know that there was going to be a fourth Republic, which we are in right now.
It's so interesting. I remember now a very, very specific December 30 front page. I think it was Concord. December 30, 1983. It was a story about the new budget. It was called the Budget of Rededication. So it turns out that we always
name our budgets. Maybe so not dramatic. Like Olympic.
Like the Cross River governor.
Yeah, so Shagari did not know that they were about to kick him out. Like,
what was the budget called?
Budget of Rededication.
Okay.
So the thing about Shagari's government, which I find very interesting, is that it had some of the brightest minds. But the corruption was.
So bright mind does not necessarily equate to transparency.
It does. It turns out that the only thing that leads to transparency is strong accountability systems.
I'm curious as to how people have been engaging, particularly when you rolled out, because the beauty is that you can actually search. You can search for keywords.
Yeah.
It's not just a day. You can search, for example, Tinubu in 1993, and you can maybe get something. You can search for Obasanjo, search for Abacha Babangida, and you bring out pages that reflect that. So how's been the response, and what have people been searching for?
Okay, so I'll give you a sense of like how the engine works. So think of it this way: there are 50,000 pages, right? If you open your phone camera, there is you hover over like the cup that says channels, it will recognize the text and say channels. So that technology is called like OCR, right?
Okay.
And we basically just apply it at scale.
Beautiful.
Across 50,000 pages. So that's roughly 25 million words, right? And so when you are searching, you're searching for the words that have already been extracted from the paper. Now, when you get results like Google search, right? Except this time it's not like links, it's like a gallery of images. And then when you click one of them, what it does is that there's a summary on each page. It's a summary of what's in the page, and it's just tags, right? That one is mostly driven by AI. So we used a bunch. We used Meta's Llama, used OpenAI's APIs for that. But what that helps us do is that what it would have taken man hours, like thousands of hours of focused work to do, we're able to just like do it in like
seconds
overnight, right? Because like it's already like cached and saved. But yeah, so like
but what were they searching for? I'm curious.
Oh yeah, what people were searching for. So we went live in October last year, right? And in the first like 2 or 3 days, one of the leading searches was Tinubu certificate. It was quite stressful, I must admit. People were searching for their names. So we find that people are looking for, and it also informs how we are thinking about like improving the experience. One of the things we always search for is the day they were born.
Right. What happened on the day I was born?
Yes. So what happened in the news? The day I was born. People search for the day they were born. People search for their family names. Someone found an obituary, 100-year remembrance. The family name is Animation. She found a 100-year remembrance ad that was placed in PM News in 1995. And it's like you're trying to scan newspapers, right? But you don't expect that.
This is exciting, but
I'm going to definitely be engaging all of that. And I imagine a lot of people are excited. Great work you're doing. We wish you the very best, and we wish you support, especially from those who have those papers and the rest. I mean, speaking with Fuad Lawal, we hope we've been able to give you a dose of history and encourage you to explore as well. Fuad Lawal is Executive Director, Archivi.ng. You have to get that right, even though it's Archivi.ng, but it's archiving when you pronounce it in full. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.